Hello everybody, Tracy Sizemore, RPG A Day 2018, Day 4. So I'm going to combine two questions today. One is the main question, which is most memorable NPC. And the other is an alternate question, most ambitious campaign idea achieved. So I have really a sketchy memory sometimes, especially when it comes to games that I've played in the past. I don't do well with remembering details about how games went or exactly what happened or how we solved a particular problem or who we met. And so that sort of translates into my life too. So I have super good memory for some things and really kind of a bad memory for others. So like a lot of my childhood memories, I rely on my sister to remember things because I just don't. I don't know, I just don't. And it's the same with gaming and remembering games and like telling stories about games. I'm not very good at it because I don't remember the details. A lot of my friends are a lot better at it than I am. So this is going to be a little bit self-indulgent because most memorable NPC. I'm gonna take it from one of my NPCs, as a game master, because that's just what I've spent the most time with them and I remember them, right? Combining the two ideas of most memorable NPC and most ambitious campaign idea achieved, I'm going to go with a guy named Captain Crush. And Captain Crush is a NPC character in my teen detective game. Teen Crush is what it's called. And I've mentioned it last year. I think I ran it last year. Yeah. I think before Gen Con last year, I had already established Teen Crush as a thing, and I mentioned it in RPG Day last year. So this is a little bit of a rehash, but it goes into more detail about how that all panned out. So Captain Crush is a insufferably arrogant, superior, cosmic level superhero for Jupiter City. And he's one of those guys who is loved by the city and also hated by the city. Hated by the other heroes in the city for sure. And hated by the villains because he's so arrogant and brash about his superheroing. And he backs up what he says with very powerful abilities, and he's very good at what he does. And but he's a pain in the butt to deal with. I mean, he's very well, not everyone can be Captain Crush. Only I can be Captain Crush. So that is the beginning point, but what Captain Crush is and was and still is much more subtle and interesting than that. And so that ties into my most ambitious campaign idea that I've achieved, which is to do Teen Crush in a campaign environment. And the whole idea there was to do a Rising Star Supers Teen Supers game. And the conceit was that you were teenage supers, meaning that you had just manifested your powers or you had recently manifested your powers, and you had the ambition to be heroes through whatever reason, whether you wanted to do it through altruism or becoming famous or money or whatever, but for whatever reason you decided you wanted to be heroes, not villains. And it was important that you decide that that's what you wanted to do. And in doing that, you decided you're going to sign up for a Teen Supers mentoring program, created by Captain Crush, called Teen Crush. And so the campaign idea was that we would have a bunch of teenagers who were supers who were trying to learn how to be heroes. Captain Crush was going to mentor them. And the ambition I had was that Captain Crush would be challenging for them, because he is a bit hard to take, kind of. But at the same time, they would grow and become more powerful, so they would be rising stars. And in what the game system I ran it in, Savage Worlds, that's a mechanical thing where you get more power points as you go through, and allows you to buy more abilities as you get more experienced. So rising stars, meaning that you start out with relatively low power levels and you gain power level as you go. So it allows you to develop and have an arc, both for your character, which you could do anyway, but also through your powers and the mechanics of it. But the ambition, and what made this tricky, was that I wanted to access some of the coming of age aspects of teen supers and becoming heroes and interacting with the world in a way that has you making tough choices. So one of the things that I achieved there was, like, I set out a bank robbery, and this was early on, and this is a fairly short campaign, but I set out a bank robbery, and one of the heroes was passing by this bank robbery that was going on. And he, the player was great because he stepped right in. He's like, well, I'm a hero. I'm going to go get him. And so he does. And but it turns out that I'm not a bank robbery. I'm sorry, it was a convenience store robbery. And it turns out that, like, one person had a gun on the guy in the back, and another person had a gun on, like, this grandmother and a little girl, right, in the store. And so immediately the player, the PC, had a quandary about what to do. Do I deal with the bad guys right away, or do I figure out a way to make the innocents safe in this situation? Get the grandmother and the girl out of there and save the guy behind the counter. And it turned out that he tried to save the girl, and the PC was, like, invulnerable. I think it was the Aegis. He was playing the Aegis, and it was really really tough. So basically ignored gunfire. So he wasn't worried about the guns. He was worried about the guns hurting the innocents in the convenience store. So he grabs the girl and tries to get her out of there. And one of the guys shoots him. And the way the dice fell, in that particular system, if you roll a 1 on the skill die, you're going to hit a friendly, right? So I told him up front, I'm like, you're carrying this little girl. This guy is shooting at you. If I roll a 1 on this die, it's going to hit the little girl. And it did. And it was frustrating for the PC, because he's like, dang it, I'm trying to save this girl, right? But that's exactly the point. Exactly the point. And it illustrated exactly what I was going for, which is to put this young person who has powers and feels like he can take on the world and foil this thing easily because he's powerful enough to ignore guns and deal with these guys fairly simply. But he wasn't able, the girl lived, but he had to make a really tough choice. The girl got shot, and she was very badly injured. And so what he had to do was take her out of there and basically do his best to take care of the civilians in the situation, but get out of there so that the girl could get medical attention as soon as possible. And it allowed the guys to escape. The guys who were robbing the convenience store. So that was a moment in that game that rung true in the experience of a teenage super who is ambitious and confident in what they can do, but unaware of the complications of what heroism means. And later in the campaign, the same character ended up in a situation where they were protecting a transport of some kind, and villains showed up to attack the transport. So they were there to protect it. It was great. Among the villains there, and there were I don't think there were very many super villains, but there were a lot of scrub villains, right? And some of them were carrying rocket launchers, because rocket launchers are basically the only thing that can hurt this guy, this particular PC. So they were shooting rocket launchers, and it did hurt him. he was mad. He was like, "Man, what are they doing with rocket launchers?" So once they finished the fight, he marches straight up to the front gate of the local military base and says, "Hey, did you know that there are people stealing rocket launchers from your, ordnance supply?" And as the teenage ambitious superhero, he's gonna fix this problem. And because he was so just brash about it, it turns out he ends up getting, a bunch of military personnel pointing guns at him and pointing things that actually can hurt him at him, and he was forced to stand down. And Captain Crush, and this is the moment with Captain Crush, and one of my favorite NPCs, is arrogant as he is, and a pain in the butt as he is. And as he has been for the PCs this whole time. He knows what he's doing, and he cares. And so he was there. Now the Aegis get locked up into some temporary holding cell that can hold him because they have superpower nullifying power, or abilities. And he sees from this crevice in this thing where he's being held, in this cage where he's being held, Captain Crush pleading with the base commander of the military base, saying, I know he's young, and I mean he's got a lot to learn, and I apologize for him. I take responsibility for it. He is my charge, and will you please let this one go this time? And so the Aegis gets to see Captain Crush advocate for him, and after being such an insufferable guy, to see this more compassionate and passionate side of Captain Crush, in a way that's advocating for what the player and what the PC did that was probably ill-advised, was a moment in the game that I felt was one of the most important moments in the game. Which brings me back to the whole ambition that I had at the beginning when I wrote this campaign, which was, I want the PCs to grow. I want them to experience the problems of heroism as a teenager. And I want them to get to know their mentor, first in a way that is, man, I hate this guy, but he knows who he's talking about. But later, eventually their mentor is going to be kidnapped. And somehow, some way, and I didn't know how exactly, but somehow that's where we're leading, is their relationship with Captain Crush is going to be such, I hope, if I do my job right, that they will care when he gets kidnapped. And they did. Boy, howdy did they. Because there were things that happened, and again, this is my bad memory, that were beautiful. I mean, in terms of the Teen Crush, the PCs, stepping into their own problem, like making things worse by being teenagers and brash and like, oh my God, they've stolen or they've kidnapped our mentor. Now we need to do this. And whatever it was that they did played right into the hands of the villains that kidnapped him. It was great. And because they got duped that way, they were extra motivated to go get him and to deal with this problem, to deal with these people who had kidnapped their mentor. So at the end, we had great things happen. Like one character was doomed or was afflicted in such a way that in Savage Worlds he had a hindrance which allowed him to pull a card at the beginning of every session. And if the card was a joker, then he was going to die that session. So in some way he was doomed to die, right? We pulled a joker on the beginning of the last session where they were going to go rescue Captain Crush. And so at the end, he does this superheroic thing that saves Captain Crush from the villains that had kidnapped him. And he dies at the end. And Captain Crush is saved. So not only does this give me the opportunity to give sort of an arc closure to Captain Crush and say, man, I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so proud of you. And thank you for being my heroes, But he's also having to be that, to express those feelings amidst the death of one of their members, of one of his mentees, It was really, and it all happened sort of thanks to the players and thanks to the mechanics. It wasn't forced. It was designed but not forced. It was a let's see what happens kind of thing. And it was a really cool campaign, I thought. I'm saying this as the one who ran it and who wrote it, but I think it was one of my most successful campaigns. And I don't know. I've had a couple that have been great, but that I'm most proud of because I really did accomplish what I set out to do, and it wasn't easy to do. So, the end, they've graduated from their mentorship, and yet one of their own has died. So it was bittersweet, but brought everybody closer together, right? And if you can do that in a game, man, you're onto something, So I feel pretty good about that one. I feel pretty proud of that. But even more proud of the fact that I took that 7 or 8 session campaign and distilled it down into a one-shot. One of the players of the campaign was like, I'm interested to see how you do that. How you have those beats and those accomplish what you want to accomplish in a 4-hour session. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do it either. It was really, really hard. But I think I did it. And I've run Teen Crush as a one-shot for the last year or so, and it's been fantastic. It does accomplish what I set out to do both in the campaign and what I hoped I could achieve in the one-shot. I do it in 4 hours, and it was tricky to do. But, so, again, self-indulgent, so I apologize for that. But it's one of those things that I'm kind of proud of, and that I feel like I did pretty well at. So most memorable NPC, Captain Crush, because he's complex and arrogant and insufferable, and yet compassionate and passionate and cares. He cares about the people he's trying to help, and he cares about the people he's trying to train. He's a true mentor, and he knows what he's doing, despite being a little bit hard to take sometimes. So I love him. Okay, well, that's it for the day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.